the state of Oklahoma, Governor Kevin Stitt.
You know, before I was governor, I was a businessman, and I believe in bringing common sense leadership to the state capitol. We need that. This approach has really put Oklahoma on the map. You know, today, Oklahoma has the third lowest unemployment rate of any state in the entire nation. It's actually the lowest it's ever been in our state history. We now have the largest savings account ever in our state history. We're the 7th lowest tax burden in the nation. And we're ranked the number one in best lowest cost of doing business by CNBC in the entire nation. Oklahoma is the right place to be, to start a business, to raise a family. If anybody in here is from Texas, I just want to remind you, Oklahoma is a step above Texas. You know, this week, the Supreme Court listened to oral arguments in the Mississippi pro-life Dobbs versus Jackson, which could overturn Roe versus Wade. The biggest pro-life case in decades. You know, when I ran for governor and I met you, I promised I would sign every piece of pro-life legislation in my desk. I've kept that promise. This past session, I signed 9 pro-life bills. We've laid the groundwork to ban abortion the moment the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade in the state of Oklahoma. I see a lot of my buddies out here and my friends in the legislature. I don't know if they got introduced tonight, but I could not do anything without their help and the conservative leaders that are in this room. So my friends in the House and the Senate, you've probably been introduced so far, but I want to stand up and I want everybody to know what great representation we have, conservative representation from Tulsa. So please stand up, Wallace and everybody, stand up around the room. These men and women put these pro-life pieces of legislation on my desk to sign it, so you've got to give them a round of applause. House Bill 2441, I signed that last year. It's known as the heartbeat bill. That prohibits abortion once a fetal heartbeat has been detected. We want Oklahoma to be abortion-free and protect the life going forward. The 10th Amendment clearly states that what is not designated to the federal government, it belongs to the states. Oklahomans, we believe in life and protecting the life of the unborn. So it's very important that we challenge federal overreach, especially on this issue. I'm also committed to improving the education system in our state. You know, tax dollars, they should be spent to fund students, not systems. This past legislative session, we expanded school choice. You know, we believe that students deserve to attend a school that best fits their needs. Y'all remember last year when some schools were closed for nearly a full year? Tulsa Public School was closed down for 355 days. I was hammering them every single day. to open up. And I'm telling you, if anybody in this room, if you were governor, and you had to talk to the single moms, the single dads, they would call my office. They'd say, Governor, they go, what am I supposed to do? I have to go to work during the day, and my first grader and third grader are not learning how to read via Zoom. We don't have good internet at home. Kids need to physically be in the classroom with their teachers. So no matter what comes next, parents have more choice. We gave them more choice last session, and we're going to continue that move and momentum, and we're going to give them more choice next session. You know, next year, we're also making the largest investment we've ever made in public education. Over $3.2 billion of your tax dollars is going to education. So I have requested the first ever investigative audit of the State Department of Education. Literally, again, it's common sense. It is the largest spend of your tax dollars. I am shocked that these have never been requested before. Parents should know where the taxpayer dollars are being spent in their schools. I was proud to sign legislation that banned teaching our kids to judge each other by their gender or the color of their skin. So-called critical race theory. We were literally the first state to ban this divisive teaching in our public schools in K-12. We're also expanding funding for Equal Opportunity Scholarship Program. This is going to help low and middle income households with more education opportunities. We created the Red Bud Fund to create a level playing field for poor, rural, and charter schools. You know, every step of the way, every policy decision that was made was with the students in mind, not teachers' unions. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for parents and for the students, and I'll put the kids first. You know, briefly, I want to discuss another challenge facing our state. I believe that this is the biggest challenge that's ever hit any state since maybe the Civil War. And it was the Supreme Court decision last year in the McGirt case. The McGirt case was a 5-4 decision that basically said reservations still exist in Oklahoma. As a fourth-generation Oklahoman and a member of the Cherokee Nation, we have learned all through school that we were former Indian reservation in the state of Oklahoma. So now half of our state is considered an Indian reservation. Oklahoma is literally being torn apart. Attorney General John O'Connor and I are petitioning the Supreme Court to overturn McGirt. And let me be clear, that means we want to restore Oklahoma's sovereignty back to the way we've known it for the last 114 years. One of the most basic functions of a state in the United States of America is the ability to enforce the rule of law. And if we cannot do that, then we don't have a state. And sitting here today, Oklahoma has lost that ability in eastern Oklahoma. Since McGirt, we're sitting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, the police department was forced to turn over 1,156 cases, the tribal nation, who have not issued a single subpoena asking a Tulsa police officer to testify in a single criminal case. In other words, they're not prosecuting those. They haven't been contacted or asked for help in any of those 1,156 cases. Keep in mind, there is no accountability or transparency in us determining where those cases are sitting right now. Daniel Vivier case, another example I like to share, happened in Ada, Oklahoma. 3 bad dudes beat up an 85-year-old man, almost killed him, stole his truck. They were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Daniel Vivier now is out of prison because of his race. The other 2 are still in. That's not equal protection under the law. Same crime on the same day, and one person's out, 2 people are still in because of their race. The Biden administration, along with tribal executives, want to expand the impact of McGirt to include civil and taxation. Chuck Hoskins, the Cherokee chief, has said no Native Americans or no Indians living in eastern Oklahoma should have to pay taxes. Right now, there are more than 5,000 tax protests at the tax commission when Oklahomans with Native heritage are claiming that they don't live in the state of Oklahoma, so they don't have to pay state income tax. Think about that for a second. Over 40% of our revenue comes from income tax. Think about this, a CEO of a law firm that happens to be part Native, that's a member of Southern Hills Country Club, doesn't have to pay income tax, and a single mom working at a restaurant does, of a different race. It's preposterous. We have to fix this. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has used the McGirt ruling to say Oklahoma no longer has jurisdiction to regulate mines. The Department of Mines has been a state agency since statehood. It's really a federal takeover of eastern Oklahoma. And now, according to President Biden, those lands belong to the feds when it comes to mining regulation. Where does this end? We need one set of rules, because after all, we all drive on the same roads. We all send our kids to the same public schools. This is not an issue of tribes versus Kevin Stitt. This is an issue of fundamental sovereignty of a state in the United States of America. This is an issue of fairness, of justice, and equal protection under the law. Thank you. I will never give up fighting for my state of the state of Oklahoma. Now, as you all know, the Biden administration has filed unlawful forced vaccine mandates. So Oklahoma has filed lawsuits right back. We are suing the Biden administration. You know, think about this for a second. The President of the United States, with an executive order, takes away health choices from every single American. It's unbelievable what they're trying to do. And I want to recognize and I want to thank Attorney General John O'Connor for fighting back against this administration. He's doing a fantastic job. Unlike our current president, who in just 11 months has managed to run the economy into the ground. Inflation is at a 30-year high. And his vaccine mandates have destroyed industries and crushed businesses. Think about it. President Biden is forcing Americans to choose between a vaccine or their job. It goes even further. This unlawful overreach is now impacting our armed forces. The Biden administration has tried to unlawfully impose vaccine mandates on the service members of the Oklahoma National Guard. This vaccine it's personal to me. A one-size-fits-all mandate do not fit the reality that we're in today. And as your governor, along with the support of Attorney General John O'Connor, I will continue to push back against the Biden administration's unconstitutional mandates. In May, I signed legislation to protect our students by banning vaccine passports as well as mask mandates without a personal exemption in schools. As Commander-in-Chief of the Oklahoma National Guard, I have directed that no member of the Guard be punished if they choose not to get the COVID vaccine. And I'm grateful for Senator Lankford and Senator Inhofe, who are backing up my efforts to push back against the White House. And meanwhile, as I said, Attorney General John O'Connor has filed multiple lawsuits to protect Oklahoma's freedoms. We sued the administration for attempting to force vaccines on our healthcare workers. Remember, the same people Joe Biden called heroes less than a few months ago, now he's threatening with their jobs, and it's not going to stand in the state of Oklahoma. I was the first governor to fully reopen our economy. I never closed our churches. I never made mask mandates. One of the few governors that did that. We also signed into law that no future governor could ever close places of worship. The media won't tell you this, but the truth is, government mandates and lockdowns, they don't work. They're unnecessary, and worst of all, they're un-American. Our freedom is what makes our nation so special. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Our founders, they uniquely understood that religious liberties were the key to all other liberties and all other freedoms. Not every country has that. We are so unique and so blessed to be in America. I love Ronald Reagan, his favorite definition of freedom. Ronald Reagan said, freedom is the ability to say no. Don't you love that? I love that. Today, it's more important than ever that we preserve our freedoms. If we don't protect individual liberty above all else, we lose the unique opportunity we have in America where every citizen has the same opportunity to succeed. And I want to be very clear. We are living in unique, interesting times. We are seeing some leaders think it's perfectly reasonable, maybe even admirable, to sacrifice our freedoms for something else. Some people say, well, we could sacrifice them for public safety or majority viewpoint. Let me ask you this. If the majority of the people think one way, is it okay that we force everybody to think that way? How about public health? This is all deeply troubling to me. Today, you might find yourself agreeing with or not even really caring about a few extra mandates. But tomorrow, you may disagree. George Orwell, the famous author, he said, if liberty means anything at all, it means the ability to tell people what they don't want to hear. Oxford, our founders talked a lot about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Oxford defines liberty as this: the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. Patriotism is the lifeblood of our republic. America needs more patriots like you to stand up for your liberties and to speak out against the oppression that is becoming all too familiar in our country. As your governor, I will never sacrifice your liberties, our liberties, at any cost. There's nothing more precious or more fragile than our freedoms. I believe too often that people see the world through a political lens when we need to be seeing the world through a godly lens. God tells us in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That is something we all need to do. And as we welcome this Christmas season, as we gather with our friends and family to celebrate, I pray that we acknowledge God's care on our state and our country, His blessings and the freedoms that we enjoy in Oklahoma and our country. Thank you guys so much for having me here tonight. I'll leave you with this last thought. I'm so thankful and proud to be an American, but I thank God every day that I was raised in Oklahoma. God bless you.